feel like this is not closed, but I'm just so close to the door. What's up, guys? So today we are here in a 1972 Mini Cooper, but this is not any regular Mini Cooper. This is an engine swap Mini Cooper. So up front we have a Honda B series engine. It's the 18B. This thing will rev out to 8,500 RPMs. Now, I haven't yet taken it up to that. I've spent about 20 or 30 minutes in this car, and already I can tell that this car is absolutely terrifying. It's done some work to the suspension. So this car was built by super fast minis out of Georgia. They do pretty much anything and everything that you can do to a Mini. They did all the transmission and engine work. I mean, when I say engine work, they just took the B series motor and transmission and put it into the Mini Cooper. Now, that's a lot easier said than done. The better advantage that you had with this year Mini Cooper is it was a bit longer than the older ones because you had enough room to fit. They made room to fit a condenser for the AC. So this car blows cold and hot AC whenever you want. But they had to do a lot of modifications to fit this engine in this car. And right now, it spits out about 200 horsepower. Like you're utilizing it even when you're not all the way up there in the higher VTEC range. But I noticed even when I was getting onto the highway, this car has a lot of bump steer, and I think that's mainly accredited to how light the car is. And it's pretty terrifying. God, and it's small in here, but yet at the same time it feels like you have the room to do what you need. But whenever I started driving it, it felt very familiar. This car doesn't feel like my car, but the engine, it just feels familiar to me. Whenever I push the clutch and everything, whenever it engages, it's the same kind of smooth feel that I feel on my S2000. I think that makes the car a lot more easier to drive. What makes this car hard to drive and kind of scary to drive to me is mainly accredited, I guess, the size and the steering of this thing. Even like around 60 or 70 miles an hour when you're accelerating, the car wants to pull from left to right. And it's something that I have never really felt before, at least not to this magnitude. My brother's 350 horsepower GTI, I mean, it'll torque steer a little bit, but it has computers and such that'll correct it for the most part. And this has nothing in it. It doesn't have ABS, no traction control. It has nothing except the good looks and an awesome B-Series motor up front. The turning itself, it feels very direct, but after you turn kind of hard, the car kind of wants to sway back the other way, and it is just kind of something that you have to get used to. We have the regular suspension out back, and it's not really regular in this modern day and age because this car has the classic trunk cone suspension, and it stayed like that for years. It stayed like that, as a matter of fact, until BMW bought them out in the early 2000s. But in the front, we have what Minitech put in. They have their own suspension, but what it looks like to me is it looked like to be Bilstein's. It looks to be a Bilstein spring and strut, but they also have their own control arm setup that kind of makes this all functional and happen. Let's give it a little bit here. That is incredibly awesome. I didn't feel so much bump steer on that one. I guess it was because I was all on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's mainly whenever you let off a little bit, that's when it starts to... That's terrifying.
It is, isn't it?
So in this car, so you either have to be going all out to stay alive, or if you let off, you are going to die. So for those who don't know, this car regularly came with about 45 horsepower, give or take 8 horsepower. Now we have quadrupled the power to make a solid 200, and the results are definitely noticeable. Now the brakes are upgraded for it to be 2-piston in the front, and it's got the drum brakes in the back. But even with the 2 pistons, this car still kind of is, I don't know, the braking is not as good as it should be, and that might be accredited to it not having ABS, but you really still kind of have to be on your toes. I've been making sure I've been leaving a lot of room in front of me so that nothing can really take its course. The car was cleaned up and is set to be set up for all-wheel drive. They moved some things around, and soon it will be running power to every wheel on this car. So we'll hopefully have to revisit that whenever that happens. Now, despite the bump and torque steer being pretty bad, once you get used to it, it becomes a lot more manageable. You kind of start to kind of gauge how the car is going to react, and it would be a huge mistake not to take this thing on a track. The owner was telling me that he tracks it himself. He's gone a couple times, and he was keeping up with most everything that was out there. There was a couple Elises, Exceeds, and even some open wheel cars like Caterhams, and he was sticking with them the whole time. Of course, that's going to mainly be on your tighter tracks. I mean, unless, no, we're not talking about ovals here, but stuff where handling really, really shines. And the Mini, whenever you, even though this car's engine swapped, it still hasn't lost that awesome handling about it. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering how much something like this costs. Well, if you already have your own 72 Mini, you can send it to Minitech, and it'll probably be somewhere in around the 20 grand range. If you don't have your own Mini, you don't have anything, and you just have the pure ambition to have a B-Swap Mini, you call them up, and they can have a car to you for 40 G's. I'm not going to say that's not a lot of money, because it is, but for what you get, I definitely feel like that's worth it. You got to remember you're going to have something that's super cool, super fun, and it's going to have some pretty great reliability because it's essentially a Honda. Now, if you look here in the interior, this is not like a drift build by any means. The interior was really kept. Really clean. The owner had the dash replaced with custom gauges, and they all work. There's no guessing here. And it's even got the regular Mini seats in it that are in pretty much pristine condition, and even the seats in the back. So if you do want to lug around a couple of friends, if they can fit in the back, you have it there, and it all looks really, really well. Oh, it spit I don't know if y'all heard that, but the car just spit a flame. It definitely did. Does it always do that?
On occasion.
Man, that is so rewarding.
Good sound though.
And this car even has a custom radio fitted to it. It's basically just a Pioneer radio, but the electronics and everything everything still works. You can even have a cord here where you can plug up your iPhone or whatever you please to play music. So you can be listening to whatever you want to on Spotify in your 1972 Mini Cooper. The color on this car is actually atomic orange. I kind of recognized it just because my uncle has a C2, and the owner even said that this color was shared from that Corvette. In the daylight, whenever you look at it, it looks very vibrant, very colorful, and I know that if I were going to drive this through Austin, every Longhorn fan would lose his mind. Bumps do feel a bit more harsh on this, and that's partly accredited to the wheels that are on this. So these are 13-inch wheels. But the widest tire that we have on this right now is 175, and that's really not much. So you could definitely get the tires spinning if you really wanted to. But again, that's why it's kind of have to be more careful whenever you're driving it. There really are probably about only a few hundred of these. The owner said he knows of 3 VTEC ones in Houston. There's only about 10 of them in the nation that are all-wheel drive. You really have a bespoke car at this point whenever you go to car shows, because that's actually where I found the owner. I saw him at Coffee and Cars, and they had a LaFerrari compared to that day. They had a bunch of Ferraris and Lamborghinis, but there was everybody crowded around a Mini Cooper. And I was like, oh, that's cool, a classic Mini. I went up to it and saw it had a Honda engine in it. And I thought that was just so cool. I mean, any car enthusiast just can really wrap their head around it. I mean, the only other person I know that's done it is Mighty Car Mods, and they're in Australia. To see that here it was kind of incredible to see another person do that, and it's just really not a common thing that you really get to see. Really, my ending remarks on this is it is a super fun driving enthusiast car. I've had about an hour with it. I've really had a chance to kind of become familiar with the monster that this little car really is. Torque steer will get the better of you if you don't pay attention to it, as well as the bump steer. But if you start to realize and kind of gauge how those things are going to affect you whenever you're driving, it becomes a really, really enjoyable driver enthusiast car. I really don't want to get out of it. It's super cool, it's super fun, and it really draws no comparison to where Mini Cooper is at today. I feel super connected with the car, and it is just so much fun to drive. I want to get a big thank you to the owner who let me use this. It's a fun time with this. Let me know what y'all think of this in the comments down below. Thank y'all so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. It's a Mini, man. Don't insult me like that. It's not a Fiat. It's a Mini. A Mini Cooper. Yes, sir.